While I was there, I saw so many family members local that just would walk in, just say hi. They wanted to see the son who still worked there. He ended up becoming a forest lawn employee, and he was a counselor there. So a lot of families just came in. It was normal for the community to walk into this funeral home just to say hi and talk to the staff. But we were all different. We weren't used to that. We're more corporate at this point. We didn't have a relationship with the community. When I went into that place, I even told the son of the original owner, I said, why don't you just open your own funeral home? I try to tell so many people just to open their own funeral home, hoping that someone would just do it with me. But, everyone was like, no, it's too hard to do that. You can't do that.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast. Our mission is to capture and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. We believe our diversity is what makes the SGV great. And no matter where you're from in the San Gabriel Valley, you will feel welcome.
All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the My SGV podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new here, we bring you the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And if you're a returning listener, thank you for joining us again, and relax. And we hope to bring you another informative and exciting episode coming up. Scott, I know that your mother recently passed, right? And I don't know if you're comfortable to share, but she had been going through some things. And how was the process of after her passing for you? Not the emotional process, but
Right. Well, it actually was very smooth because we had and she had known that there were going to be issues to deal with, and everybody dealt with them quite openly, and the family dealt with it. Everything from just probate and taking care of all those issues upon a person's death that are important, and they had all been addressed in advance, and she knew where she was going to be buried. She was cremated, and my father was buried in a casket, was not cremated, but her ashes were then placed in the same gravesite. So they're together, but she was cremated, and it all went very smoothly because everybody took care of it up front, and it was really smart.
That was her choice to be cremated?
Yes.
And her choice to be with your father?
Yes, to be buried together, yes.
My father, who passed in May of 2020, and my younger brother, who passed in December of 2019, they were both cremated, but my sister took care of the process. So even though, those deaths had occurred, I am completely unfamiliar with whatever process she had to go through.
Actually, I'm unfamiliar as well. Because my family lives in Seattle. My sisters are all there, and they really took care of everything quite well. They dealt with the, I guess you would say, the administrative issues and so on. But it was very smooth.
Yeah, I always wonder how skilled or what level of training or experience they have in dealing with a person who is dealing with grief, because this is sort of like a I would imagine a difficult time, and that almost to me seems like it would be more important than the actual administrative stuff, right? Like here's a person that is just lost someone, and to guide them through while they're suffering.
You would think so. But I think from my experience, just doing a lot of planning ahead, even the grief can be probably less intense if you're prepared.
Yeah. Well, speaking of planning ahead, we send a list of guests and dates to Paris Baguette, who sponsors or provides the refreshments and pastries for the show, and they have it ready, and Victoria just goes and picks it up from their pickup area. So thank you to Paris Baguette for sharing their goodies with us and our guest. Well, people must be wondering why the subject matter, but our guest today, his name is Lawrence Suarez, and he's the founder of Allay Cremations. Lawrence, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me, guys.
So Allay Cremations, and you guys are in Pasadena.
Yes.
So I guess maybe obvious, but what is a company that does cremations? What do you guys do?
So we focus primarily in direct cremation. It's not common knowledge to know that. Everyone's usually used to just burial, or they may want to have a viewing, but direct cremation is cremation without having a viewing or a memorial service prior to. It's literally just we take your loved one into our care, do all of the filing that's required by the state, and then directly after that's cremation. And then we provide a personal service where we deliver the ashes directly to the family. So that's all we do. It's very straightforward. It's the most affordable route for families that are looking for end-of-life planning. So we specifically focus on just that niche in the funeral profession.
I want to get into your story, but I don't want to lose this question. Are a lot of your customers, like, have they planned for this, or are a lot of them unplanned and then they seek out your services?
Most are unplanned, and I think that's what we focus on, because sometimes death is unexpected, so they don't have the financial means to be able to afford a memorial service or to afford. It's about a couple of thousand sometimes for them to not even know what to do with when someone just passes away out of nowhere. So mostly unplanned. We do have pre-planning options, but most of our customers or families are unplanned.
I see. Yeah. Well, Lawrence, this is the My SGV podcast. What's your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
I've been connected, come to think of it, and I was just telling Scott earlier, although I grew up in Glendale, and before I came here, I started to think, what was my, I didn't realize how connected I was to the SGV. Always going with my family to Alhambra growing up, even working in Monrovia for a couple of years, because I did work for a larger funeral home that acquired another funeral home in Monrovia. So I was around this area a lot, then now moving to Pasadena. So I didn't realize until then I was mostly in the SGV. No one really knows the SGV. They just think, oh, we're going to Pasadena, or we're going to Alhambra. But then before I came here and started to research more, I was like, this SGV, the mountains right there, that's the SGV. Didn't even know La Cañada was part of the SGV. Yeah. So I'm glad that I was able to find you guys, because now it made me realize, like, man, I've been hanging out in the SGV throughout my whole life, went to Pasadena City College, like, who would have known?
Sure. Yeah. And now your business is located definitely in the SGV in Pasadena.
Yes.
So you grew up in Glendale, you said, which is SGV adjacent.
Yes. Exactly.
And so you were born in Glendale? Is that right?
I was born in Los Angeles at UCLA, but my family were raised in Glendale.
I see. And then you said you went to PCC.
Yes.
And when did you enter into? I think you started with, was it Forest Lawn, or is it a larger company?
Forest Lawn is the largest funeral home here. I mean, locally, not nationwide. There's just a large funeral home here. About 9 locations. Started there in 2011, just as a job. Left to the military for a little bit because I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I joined the National Guard. Didn't even think I was going to come back to the job. They gave me some time off. Then from there, just figured out this is where I was meant to be in this profession.
Can we go back to even though maybe not relate to the SGV, but just growing up for you, what are some of the things or influences in your life that may have steered you onto this path? Like, what was growing up like for you?
I think I was just always good with people. I think I was always just that. I was always talking to people. I was always just cared for people. Growing up, I always wanted to be the funny guy, which I think probably held me back from my promotions when I was at Forest Lawn, just because I always was. I always just liked to serve people. I think I cared more about people than I did myself, other people's needs before myself, which I never liked sales. I was in banking before, never liked the sales part. But then I realized customer service was where I was at. I don't like to call it customer service with what I'm in, because we serve families. I don't like to call them customers. They're more just families to us. But then that's when I realized this is what I meant to do. Some people will say I'm pretty much in sales without thinking I'm in sales, but it doesn't come off that way, because if we can help a family financially, I'd rather give up the financial portion of it just to help them out. Mm. Yeah.
And are you ethnically Filipino?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so from my experience and my Filipino friends, that community is sort of tightly knit and connected in the San Gabriel Valley, or even in Glendale. Did you find that also?
Oh yeah. Yes, but unfortunately they don't really they don't do much cremation. My original plan was to start a Filipino funeral home. It still may be in the plan, but because the way that they honor someone who has passed is much more different. They have 5-day viewings all day, 8 hours a day. Back home in the Philippines, it's even 2 weeks sometimes. Here, I don't do viewings. Eventually, I probably will want to, but they do long celebrations, 40th day celebration. They just have a full. I've had a Filipino family that did about a week and a half viewing. So it's different.
Wow.
They're very strongly Catholic, right?
Yes.
Although I don't think that is customary in the Catholic religion. I grew up Catholic.
Right.
I mean,
same.
I don't remember that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. It was just actually acknowledged by the Catholic Church or okayed by the Catholic Church to do cremation as like an end of life option.
I was wondering that because I grew up, as I said, my whole family is Catholic, and I grew up Catholic, and I didn't think cremation was something that was accepted.
Mm-hmm. It's just recent, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
It was recent. Within that, I say the last 10 years or even less, because when I started in 2011 in this profession, that's why Filipinos are mostly, it's mostly burials. But then as time goes, it's just the inflation, everything, prices just go up with burials. Now it's just cremation has just been accepted.
Yeah. Not only the burials, but like, I guess you're referring to like the cost of the lot.
Yes.
But then there's the casket. Mm-hmm. There's like, I've heard horror stories of people like salesmen taking advantage or taught to take advantage of grieving families during this time.
Right.
And wow.
It's unfortunate because I worked at Forest Lawn for about 6-7 years. And after that, I worked for another cremation company that was a nationwide brand. That was the first cremation company that just offered cremation. So I worked there for a year. But seeing the price gouging when it comes to it, because you got to think this is the most vulnerable time for someone to be there. They're not going to go price shopping. They're not going to say, hold on, we'll be back. I'm going to go down the street to look at it. They just go with the first option. Then they start gathering different credit cards just to pay that off. So I saw that firsthand, and it's unfortunate. But that's just the world these days when it comes to, sales. Well,
it's interesting that people buy and sell plots, as real estate investments.
Yes, and there's a lot of brokers that do, and they do that, but there's not much. They just think of it as like you said, Scott, like real estate, but they don't truly own that space. It's like cemetery. It depends on the cemetery. They all have their own different laws for what, like Rose Hills, Forest Lawn. And even the smaller ones in Glendale, like Grandview, they're smaller ones. They all regulate differently. So you don't truly own it, but they think of it in the sense as real estate.
Can you help educate me on what you or a person who's working in cremation for Forest Lawn? Mm-hmm. Like I just had this idea, or maybe this is a feeling that you're around death all the time. Is that true, or are you just doing more of the admin stuff? Well,
at Forest Lawn, I was around death in the beginning. I actually didn't want to do it. I just didn't like being around the bodies. I actually still to this day don't feel comfortable doing it, but then someone has to do it. So yes, I am around it a lot.
I'm sorry. Can you explain what is it?
Around the bodies.
Just being around them.
Being around the bodies. Sometimes we have to prep them. Even now, we prep the bodies. We always had to take inventory after a viewing to make sure jewelry's all there, because after all day viewing, unfortunately, there's been instances where families take stuff. So we have to do inventory. You got to make, or even prior to that, even now, what we do is minimal prep, meaning make sure, not to sound morbid, but eyes closed, mouth closed, things of that, like something very minimal.
Well, this is an interesting subject, though, and if we can go back even just a little bit before that process. What happens when a person dies? Because I'm not even sure I know. Somebody dies in their home, dies, in an accident, whatever. What happens to the body?
That's a good question, because we get that. It's not common knowledge to know, right? If it's an accidental death, the body has to go to the coroner's office, right? Everyone automatically thinks, most people think the body goes to the coroner no matter what. But if someone passes at home and they're under hospice care, then the hospice nurse just has to pronounce, and then we can pick them up. Dies at the hospital, we can pick them up. But the coroners, we only deal with the coroners if it's an accidental death, if it's not due to natural causes. So that's the only time the body will go to the coroner's office. Other than that, hospital, under hospice care, Now, if it's a residence passing, if they pass at a residence, there's no hospice, then they would have to call the authorities to pronounce death, because what the authorities need to do is pronounce.
Who would be the authority?
Paramedics.
Who would they call?
Paramedics.
Oh, okay.
I get the question, a lot of families, they call and I have to advise them, you have to call 911 or call the back office to whichever police department you're close to. And they always say, we don't want the loud sirens coming. We don't want that big of a parade coming down the street. So we just have to tell them, call the back line, let them know passing took place. They have to go to make sure there's no foul play. That's the whole purpose of having the paramedics or the police come, is to make sure that they did pass away, that they've been seeing a doctor. What we need to know is there's a doctor to sign off on the death certificate. Okay. A lot of families think, once you pick them up, are you going to cremate them the next day? It's not that fast. We have to file a death certificate before actually cremating or even burial. So there always has to be a doctor that has to sign off. I always tell families that's why it's important that we have to see our doctors, because if you haven't seen your doctor in like 20 days or within months, then you're probably going to go to the coroner's office and they have to just guess how you passed based off your medical records.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you say that again? How long from seeing your doctor?
It depends. So 20 days is when, if you pass away and you haven't seen your doctor in 20 days, then we're going to have to get a clearance number from the coroner. If it's months, you haven't seen your doctor, you have no one to sign off on the death certificate, so then you're going to go to the coroner's office. So the main thing is having to make sure to see your doctor. You just want to make sure that they have an accurate cause of death when the time comes.
Wow. So my father, who passed in his home, I don't know how frequently he was seeing a doctor, but he was found, I think just like in his bed. So he would have had to go to the coroner.
Yeah, so there's ways around it. If he was taking medication, there's a doctor that was prescribing meds. So on the bottle, it'll say the doctor's name. We always ask, the police will even ask, when they call us, we ask, is there any medication around? Is there a doctor's name on it? Because that doctor prescribing knows the medical information. But if he had passed, he wasn't taking any meds, no doctor information, then the coroners will pick him up. And then we have to pick up from the coroners.
I see.
And that can delay the process because the coroner will probably do an autopsy report, and it takes a little longer. So we always say, as I guess like a joke in the industry or the profession, is you don't want to go to the coroner's office because you won't know the true cause of death on your death certificate.
Really? Yeah,
they just go based off what they see. If you last went to the doctor, they're gonna take that into account, see what led to it, what led to your passing. It could be something generic like a heart attack, but then you don't know truly because they're just going based off what they see on your records.
So the doctors signing off on it would be more accurate.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you saw your doctor regularly, if they were prescribing you meds, yes, because they have your file.
Well, this is much different than my, watching CSI on.
Right. Yeah.
You're thinking that they're doing this like thorough examination of
definitely not.
Blood and your whole body to look for,
right.
suspect
right.
wounds.
Yeah. It's not that. It's the coroner is not even that in depth. They have probably 2 doctors at LA County reviewing each body. If they can't come up with anything, they have to wait for a toxicology report. Then on your death certificate, we'll just say deferred because they won't know what the cause of death for a couple months until they look at the toxicology report. So it takes, it takes time after when you reach the coroner's office, and they're so backed up right now.
Wow. So how long did you work at Forest Lawn?
About 7 years.
Oh, and you must have learned a lot about the industry.
Oh yeah, big time. So from there, Forest Lawn. Then I went to the Neptune Society, which is a large cremation brand, for about a year. So I learned a lot. I'm grateful for it because, they say it takes like 10 years to master something. So I was like mastering something without even knowing I was mastering something.
Yeah.
Was there a point in your career where you thought, okay, I really like this and enjoy this, I'm good at it, and I'm going to continue? Or did you decide, well, I've been doing this for so long? Like, was there a point where you had made a conscious decision, this is what you're going to do?
I always joked around in our office. Even amongst like the VPs that would walk into our office, I always say, why don't we just start our own funeral home? And, a lot of my employees at the time, or not employees, my colleagues at the time just laughed about it because, they think it's just, no, we can't do that. It seems much harder. So I just felt I didn't want to do anything else. This was so easy for me to just serve families, to walk them through the process was just so easy. It's just being a person that cares was just so simple for me. I couldn't do anything else. After I was thinking of staying in the military, but I think I'm too scared to do that. I was even just going to choose like a desk job. I wasn't actually in the military. I chose a tank job, and I was there for training for a little bit in a tank, and it wasn't cut out for me. I couldn't even drive it. Yeah.
An Abrams?
No, it was a Paladin.
Oh.
Yeah, they're not even in service right now. They only used them in Afghanistan back in the day, so they don't even use them right now. Yeah.
It's a 109, M109.
Yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh wow, you know exactly.
Yeah,
your takes, huh?
it's self-propelled.
Yes.
Right, Paladin. So you believed that you could do this. And then you went from Forest Lawn and you worked for this other company, and then you shared with me when we first spoke going to Monrovia. Can you share about that story?
Of course, yeah. So Forest Lawn acquired a small local Monrovia funeral home. It was owned by it was called Douglas and Zook. And they were known in that community. They were loved in that community. The owner, Mr. Zook, and they lived next door to it. They owned the house next to the actual funeral home, and it was a beautiful funeral home. It was great with a chapel, the way it flowed. It was, I didn't even know that I actually appreciated it. I don't know why. It was a beautiful funeral home. And Forest Lawn took it over. They bought it out, and they rarely ever bought funeral homes out. Especially small mom and pop ones. They bought it out. They needed to turn everything over into Forest Lawn's ways, into Forest Lawn's how they do all the paperwork, flow, internal processes, everything. So I was one of the three to go there to turn everything over, to make sure everything was done the Forest Lawn way. So I was there for about a year and a half. While I was there, I saw so many family members local that just would walk in, just say hi. They wanted to see the son who still worked there. He ended up becoming a Forest Lawn employee, and he was a counselor there. So a lot of families just came in. It was normal for the community to walk into this funeral home just to say hi and talk to the staff. But we were all different. We weren't used to that. We're more corporate at this point. We didn't have a relationship with the community. But from that moment, I just realized, and when I went into that place, I even told the son of the original owner, I said, why don't you just open your own funeral home? I try to tell so many people just to open their own funeral home, hoping that someone would just do it with me. But, everyone was like, no, it's too hard to do that. You can't do that.
But you didn't open a funeral home. But what you did in Monrovia was you were part of the community and really, involved in people's lives in a different way than you are now. Because you said now it's more unplanned, maybe more impoverished people. Or
Yes, depending on the price point, right? I realized, although we try to stay affordable. Yeah, it is unplanned now, but we're going on this week's will actually be our 4-year anniversary this week on Friday. But as we move through the years, we have we're building that community like Douglas and Zook, because now a lot of them is word of mouth. We barely even market. We don't advertise a lot. We do minimal. So a lot of it's word of mouth, families who refer their own families and friends. And that is the biggest, validation for us that we're doing something right. And
if you're helping a family with a service, do you have the location for that?
No, we don't do services right now.
Okay.
But I still do help families on my own to find a place for that where they can afford it. They give me a price point. I just refer them. I look at their contract. I take it down. I itemize everything for them. That's just something I do for myself because I hear a lot of families say they can't afford a Forest Lawn. So the casket, I'll order from another vendor for them, help them out on that end.
So your cremation, so you wouldn't have caskets, would you?
No, it's it's like a casket. It's called a fiberboard container. It's the same as a casket, just made of cardboard, because by law in California, everyone has to be cremated in a container. You can't just be cremated without just pushing your body in. It has to be in a container. So with
my mother, we had an urn, and that urn was buried. Can that be done here in California?
Yes, depending on the cemetery. Some cemeteries, like Forest Lawns, you can. It has to be a biodegradable urn or a metal urn. That's fine too. But other cemeteries are more lenient, where it could be any urn. So it all depends on the cemetery.
Now, who calls you, and how do they find you? How do they know about you?
It's through online. Everything's online. A lot of word of mouth. We try to work with hospices, but a lot of hospice agencies, they work with a larger cremation brand. I don't know. We try to work with them, but we have relationships with some, but it's mostly online. A lot of our families find us online. Yeah, because we try to get our reviews up so that a lot of, organic reviews.
Everybody should know this. Everybody is part of it, but it never dawned on me. But there is a death industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is. Everyone should know. Everyone pays for insurance, right? You're paying for insurance for something that you don't know. You're protecting yourself. You don't know what's going to happen. The only thing death is going to happen. And I see a lot of families that don't pre-plan, so they leave the bill for their kids. And the kids these days is just they don't have enough to cover and to have a service for them. So exactly what you said. Everyone should know this. Not everyone really wants to know it because they feel like they'll be jinxing it. I have families that call and they say, we want to pre-plan, and they won't call back. But then a year later, something happens. Just like, we should have took care of this at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But people tend to do that, not just with death, but with all kinds of things.
Right.
They just don't want to do something.
They just put it off.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we have a lot of pre-planners too. Couples that just want something simple, and then from there just. And
do your families usually just take the urn, or do you arrange to have something else done with it?
They take the urn that we provide. It's a plastic urn, but we deliver to all our families. We personally deliver urns to them just so they don't have to. We try to make everything as easy as possible. We're literally hand-holding all of our families. Updates every day, call them every day, text them, everything every day.
Can you distribute the ashes outside of the urn? Mm-hmm. Like in a plastic bag, right? Yeah, so the ashes are in a plastic bag. We have families that request to split ashes. We split the ashes amongst family members. They scatter at sea. They scatter in the mountains. A person is free to do whatever they want with the ashes, or is there some regulation? Yeah, so if they're going through, say for example, they're scattering at sea and they find a captain off San Pedro, Long Beach, or Marina Del Rey, the captain has to be licensed by the Coast Guard, and then they have to have a permit, which we provide, to scatter at sea. And they have to scatter 3 miles off the coast. But could I have just taken ashes and scattered them myself in the sea, or is that not right? It's families. I mean, what you do with it, I always say, and I probably shouldn't say this, but the cremation. There's no cremation police walking around looking for ashes, right? The main concern of the state and the county is that it's not in lieu of the view of the public. That's when they get uncomfortable. If you're to take a private boat, go 3 miles down out by yourself, that's fine. The ashes are in your possession. Some families have private residence. They just do it in the back of their house, or they make a tree out of it. There's canisters where you can mix it with a plant and you grow into like a tree. Oh, really? Mm-hmm. You can even make diamonds out of it. Diamonds out of. Is that right? Ashes, yeah. Mm-hmm. So there, a tree could be made of. Oh yeah. Your loved one's ashes. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh really? It's a plant. Yeah, we offer those. We always have to mix it with the soil, and then we deliver it to the family. The family just plants it in the ground. Wow, I wish I'd known that. Yeah. Yep.
I have a question about people, even family members. Like, what if they have no plan? They can't afford. Like, what happens to those bodies?
County goes through the county.
And then what? They just
the county will take care of it. But the main family concerns, they always ask, are they at the county? Are they cremated by themselves? We don't know for certain. We've helped families obtain their loved ones' ashes after a couple years, and the county keeps them. But we don't know how they cremate, or if whether it's a group. Correct. That's the main question. We don't cremation for us. It's not a group cremation. It's all individual. But a group cremation is allowed. Yeah, there's no law that says that they couldn't do that, like the county.
And I think from our conversation, you said there's only a few places where this actually takes place. Mm-hmm. Where are these places, and have you been? Have you seen? Oh yeah. So there's different. You mean crematories, right? Yes. Yeah, there's only a handful of crematories throughout LA County. In fact, during COVID, that's something that I believe what I heard is like the county, there were so many applications for people that wanted to open a crematory,
but the LA County just didn't approve them all because, it goes into the air, it goes into the piping and all that. So they didn't approve a lot. And then when COVID came through, that's when it kind of, everyone's saying they should have approved more crematories. So we cremate we work with we have several companies, one in East LA, Van Nuys, and Orange County. So we work with crematories out there, and we're present at these cremations before it starts. It's about, we make sure we prep them, and it's about a 4 to 5 hour process after that, that the cremation's complete.
Sometimes as I'm driving down the 60 freeway at Rose Hills, I see smoke.
Yeah.
Is that from a crematory?
They have their own crematory.
And it would
Rose
be
Hills.
smoke going into the sky?
Yeah, as long as it's white smoke. If it's dark smoke, they have to cut it out sooner than later, or else the fire department will show up. So that's most likely their crematory. Forest Lawn has their own crematory in Glendale. The Hollywood Hills Forest Lawn doesn't have a crematory. Covina Hills has a crematory at Forest Lawn.
Lawrence, you described the work of helping families as easy. Is there anything difficult about what you do?
I think the most difficult part, the most difficult part is just when they're really going through it, and you just got to let them cry. I'm not really good at I try to be better at it, even with my family, just being like sympathize and just, hugging and I feel I feel like they're really in pain when they're going through death, and the grieving process really starts after. When they're making arrangements, it's not as bad. But then when we deliver the ashes and we're with them in the room, that's when it really settles. And that's probably the most difficult part for me because, there's nothing you can say. You just have to stand there and just be there for them and just listen to what they have to say. That's the grieving part. Yeah,
you must see all kinds of things. I know both my father's death and my mother's death, the reception was quite a joyful experience. Mm-hmm. Friends and relatives and talking about just all of the great experiences.
Right.
I found it to be a really joyous experience.
Oh, yeah. I love it. It's just, there's family members that haven't spoken in a long time, even people who have been quarreling or fighting, they end up talking again. And it's unfortunate it has to happen when someone has passed, but I've seen that. It's happened to me when my cousin passed. I wasn't talking to my cousin, but then we started talking and we were crying together and just sharing that moment. So it is a moment to bring everyone together. Definitely. It is a joyous celebration.
Do all peoples have a joyous experience? I don't know, what's an Irish wake? You might know what that is.
I haven't done an Irish wake. Not even at Forest Lawn. I don't think we've done an Irish wake. Yeah,
I don't know if that's I'm
not too familiar with
experience,
it.
what it is. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with it.
I'm just wondering if people tend to have a lot of joy at a certain point. Mm-hmm. Maybe before grief, after grief.
I think it's after for the most of the time. I think when families all together, I think that's when it is. When families are all together at a viewing and after the burial, and especially with the Filipino community, everyone ends up eating after at the reception. So everyone just has a good time after that.
And you just see all of this. You experience it every day.
Right.
So for you, it's not a once in a lifetime thing to experience this.
Yeah. Yes. But coming from our side, we only get to do this we only have one shot to do everything right.
That's true.
Yeah. We guiding them through the process, picking up the body, making sure everything is done right in that sense, because the first impression is what pretty much what, is a lasting impression, right? So we have to make sure when we pick up the body, they're treated with care. Guiding them through the process before cremation, got to make sure that they're updated and that they know what's going on. So, we have one shot to do all that. We can't redo it.
Yeah.
And cremation's final. You can't just put everything back together, so...
Lawrence, did you receive training on how to speak to families, comfort them, at Forest Lawn? And do you have that training with the people that you work with now?
Yes. So Forest Lawn, they did spend time with us to make sure that we used the proper verbiage. There's some things that I carried on from Forest Lawn, which I'm grateful for that I learned. But the service part of it, I think it just comes from the person, to be honest. One of my employees that I brought on, he worked with me at Forest Lawn. He was actually my lead when I was at Forest Lawn, and I didn't have to train him. It was so easy to transition him because I knew how he was as a person. You just have to care.
What are some things you should say and some things you shouldn't say?
So that's a good question, Scott, because there's things at Forest Lawn that they tell us not to say.
Yeah.
You can't say, we're really not supposed to say ashes. It's cremated remains. But now we use ashes. I mean, that's what they are. We don't say death. When did they die? You don't say death. We say, when did they pass away? We don't refer to them as, we say your loved one versus having to say, oh, when did your brother die? Or what, or we don't say, oh, one thing I really stress is we don't say, oh, we're going to pick them up. We don't say we're going to pick them up. We say we're going to take them into our care. So that things like that we just learned through the years. In the profession, we don't call them a patient. We call them a decedent. Whoever passed away, they're decedents. But we don't say that to the family. We just say their loved one. Decedents is more internal. Mm-hmm. So I always tell the staff, don't say decedents, don't say death. Ashes is fine because that's what they are. But yeah, that's a good question. There's words that we use that don't usually use.
Lawrence, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. What did you bring with you today?
Oh, I brought, so this looks like an urn. Everyone will say, I enjoy drinking a good tequila now these days, but this is significant. This sits on my desk because when I first started Allay, it was during COVID. It just so happened to be when COVID hit the height of COVID. I was working by myself. When I hit 100 cases, I was doing everything by myself, filing the death certificate, calling families, delivering ashes, all by myself. And when I hit 100 family members that I served, I said, I was by myself. I said, let me just get something to commemorate that. I even put 100 under here just so that I know that this was 100. And I thought, this would be my ashes would not fit in here though. I thought a portion of it will fit. So I realized, this is what I probably would put my ashes in when the time comes. Tequila bottle. So this was very significant because even days when it's hard, being a business owner, it can be very difficult. But I have this on my desk for a reason, and it looks like an urn. People think it's an urn when they come to my office.
Yeah, they would naturally
Scott, you thought it was an urn.
Yeah, well, you just connect,
Right.
But I guess, as you say, it's not big enough. Really.
Right, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, a baby.
Yeah.
Well, Lawrence, we're going to get more into LA. I'm interested in the name and the origin of that, but let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Great.
At Wormuth Law, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. Their multicultural staff have been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast.
All right, we're back with Lawrence. Lawrence, before the break, you were sharing about your tequila bottle. And congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Before we go more into your story, we like to ask questions from this deck of cards called Icebreakers, and it's just for the listener to get to know us a little bit better. So you can choose to answer or not. Here we go. Would you rather be the star player on a losing basketball team or ride the bench on a winning one?
Oh.
Ooh.
I know you played basketball, right?
You do, yeah.
Because you played Pac Rim.
I did, yeah, and I ran a gym on Wednesdays tonight, actually.
Oh,
so,
where?
Yeah, in Glendale.
Nice.
Glendale, I ran a church gym.
Oh,
for
nice.
fans to play, yeah. So at night, is that question? Should I answer it first?
Sure. Yeah.
I'd rather be on the bench.
Be on the bench.
Just because I feel like that's when it just happened. I play in a league in Pasadena on Saturdays. Some friends always tell me, go in the game, and I'm on the bench. I was like, it's fine. Everything's clicking right now. I don't need the minutes. It's like I don't mind it. I feel like you learn more when it's coming in those times when you through a loss, then you come back and you win later. I get more joy from that, seeing the whole group come together. Star player on a losing team, it doesn't sound fun. You're by yourself, So I think I don't mind the bench. That's just me. If I can contribute by myself, that's great.
I think if I'm a pro, I'd rather be on the bench on a winning team to be part of a championship. You know.
Great.
If you're talking about rec leagues or something like that, I think
Oh no, don't put Scott in the rec league.
I'd rather play.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kobe Bryant wouldn't be happy with us, but with our well, he'll be happy with the rec league answer.
Yeah, I definitely would rather be on a winning team because the feeling of constantly losing would just be awful.
Yeah.
And you can celebrate joy and you can contribute also from the bench. You can be a good teammate. You can, cheer on your team, good support, clapping, all that. Yeah, for sure. I would rather be on a winning team.
That's true.
It would be hard not to want to get in the game though and contribute.
Yeah. It would be hard, especially if there's a player that you can play better than or contribute more than.
Sure.
Yeah. But I think I just enjoy that moment when everyone comes together and finds a way.
Yeah. Well, so to the listening audience, would you rather be the star player on a losing basketball team or ride the bench on a winning one? Let us know in the comments. And the card actually says football, but I knew that you played basketball and we were
good.
More of a basketball player. So
that's great.
So back to LA, what's the origin of the name?
Good question. It's to alleviate. It's a medieval times they used LA. It's so funny. I heard it, I think, in Game of Thrones one time when I was watching it. But it's to alleviate, to make things easier. To allay rather than use alleviate. It's a synonym for alleviate. When I was looking for names back in 2019, it was like I didn't want to choose Dove. Didn't want to choose a flower. There's other cremation companies with a flower or a rose or a bird. I just thought, what is our purpose? To make things easier for the family. So then,
yeah, it's a good name.
Synonym for alleviate came LA, and then said LA it is.
So you're in Pasadena,
yes,
right? And does that mean that most of your business is around Pasadena?
For the most part, yes. We advertise. We have our listing. I also have an office in downtown LA, so we cover that area as well. But Pasadena, we've grown to. We've built a really good base of customers or families there. A lot from San Marino, Alhambra, mostly San Gabriel. Yeah, it's a lot of our families come from that area because we're in Old Town. We started in Playhouse District, which was great, right across the Playhouse Theater. Then we moved to a bigger office in Old Town.
Whereabouts?
It's adjacent. It's on Green Street, adjacent to like Buca.
Oh wow! The exact same place that
Agnes
is.
Oh, what
Agnes restaurant?
Oh yes, it's right. Yeah, I just went to Agnes last week with
Fromagerie, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Agnes is like a wine place, right?
Cheese and
wine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just brought my girlfriend there for the first time. We sat at the bar and we were just like,
oh yeah,
man, this was just so the attention to detail. You feel like you're in another. I don't know if you guys have been yet, but you just feel like you're in another. Like you're in a little market, and then there's a restaurant in the back. You can't even tell there's a restaurant in the back.
Oh.
It was great. It was great.
So you have a brick and mortar, and I guess because families come there to talk and discuss things with you, right? And I seem to remember was that at your office? It was set up for virtual, like it looked curated, like or staged, like it looked really nice.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. When we first spoke, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like the lobby area and then I have two offices in the back for myself and my employee. But that was the lobby area with a display of urns.
You said you were doing virtual calls as well, right, with families?
We did during COVID. So we're technology forward, right? Meaning we took away all of the Forest Line had like 21 pages the family had to sign. We took that out, and our paperwork's only 5 pages, if that. So everything's electronic signatures, much easier, much faster for families to take care of paperwork. So virtually, a lot of them everything's done by phone, email. The day that we actually meet the family is the day we deliver the urn. That's the first face-to-face interaction we have.
I see. And you first reached out via your personal Instagram, and then when I asked you what's your company's Instagram, you said it doesn't go well what you do on to have social media around that.
Right.
And I seem to remember you doing like traveling recently and doing stuff. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like, has this afforded you to spend or enjoy more of what you want to do?
Oh yeah, big time. Especially my girlfriend loves to travel. She's a travel nurse, so She just likes to travel, so I have to keep up with her.
What's a travel nurse?
So she has contract. She works on contracts, so 3 months at a time. So she can work. Right now, she works at Pomona. She can work in Ventura. So she has to be about 60 miles away in order to be to have that contract.
Oh.
So she moves around a lot. She works at Pomona Valley right now. So once her contract's up, she doesn't have a contract, so she likes to travel. So we just recently went to Italy, went to Dubai last year, and doing this has, like you said, Russell, having my own company has given me the time to do it. Granted, she doesn't like I work. Sometimes I work when I'm on vacation because I can't really take my mind off it. Sometimes I just want to go back to the office and work because there's just so much more work to do.
I see. Wow. And before we go on to the final segment, what do you envision for Allay in, let's say, the next 5-10 years?
Expanding to San Diego, Santa Barbara, just to go further out to open more locations. Right now I'm working on Orange County. So it's building that presence there. We're getting there. It takes a couple months.
This is a really strange question, I'll admit it.
Okay.
But let's see. It's not a growth industry. There's no, I mean, are there more people dying now than 10 years ago? I mean, the population is not increasing.
It's
right?
not. Yeah, exactly. It's not. But the baby boomers is where, Forest Lawn used to have these employee meetings every month, and they did all the analytics and everything. They did all the numbers.
Okay, so the next 10, 20 years
correct.
should be.
And cremation is where everything's going right now. The next 10 years, just because of inflation, cost, everything, it's more affordable.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because during the baby boomer era, that's when it was like the height. The population.
You're right. You're right. So there's the big, that big, sort of like the rodent moving through the snake.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I saw the similar visual was like this bubble of water in a hose.
Yeah.
And everything that was in front of there just took off.
Yeah. Exactly like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, Lawrence, we're going to move on to the final segment of the show where we get to know a little bit more about you and what you like in the San Gabriel Valley. So, Lawrence, this is the SGV3 where we get to learn your 3 favorite or most memorable places or experiences in the San Gabriel Valley.
Okay, this is the fun part.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was fun to learn so much about an area that we knew nothing about. So.
Great. Yeah. And, having to figure out, it's just, I love that we did this because I got to learn more about the SGV. Now I'm going to call where I am is the San Gabriel Valley now.
Call it my SGV.
I'll call it my SGV. Exactly.
And wear a my SGV hat.
I need to get one of those. Yeah. So my 3 first would be, I love, since I originally was working in Monrovia, one thing that stood out to me was the Friday night street fair. I love that. On Fridays, when I got out of work, I would just go down there just to walk and hang out. And I love that downtown area of Monrovia. Yeah. In fact, before I moved to Pasadena, I was looking to try to move into that area, but it was just too much to live there. But that Friday night market with the community, with the movie theater, I love that movie theater. So that area would be on top of my list. Whenever I tell people about going to this further east, stop by Monrovia because that little Myrtle Street is great.
Yeah.
Right. That's one. Big on dim sum. I don't know if you guys are big on dim sum, but my family, that's what brought me out to Alhambra at first. So
that's why you were going.
NBC Seafood over there on Atlantic. Love that place. It's just, it was a weekend thing for me and my family.
Yeah, so that's actually Monterey Park.
Monterey Park, sorry, you're right.
Yeah.
Monterey Park on Atlantic, that's right. That specific dim sum place is where we're always at. Granted, now my family likes going to like Lunasia now. But NBC Seafood is like the original.
NBC was really my first big place as well because my office at that time was in the same complex.
Okay. Right.
I mean, it was the same parking lot. So
with the carts and everything, how can you can't get that? They don't do that in most places.
But always a long line.
Always a long line.
And I don't know what it's like now.
It's still a long line, and I don't like it unless you go early in the morning.
Yeah.
When they open. but who eats that heavy at like 9 or 10 in the
Yeah.
morning, you know? So that's, and then lastly, I love Old Town Pasadena just because there's so much going on now. More restaurants are coming this way from the west side, because I used to go to the west side to try a lot of the places that now they have here. Just to point out, like, I don't know if you guys had Prince Street Pizza, but Prince Street Pizza now is in Old Town, and that's just New York pizza, and it's great.
Is
Breakfast.
that on Fair Oaks?
It's on Colorado. It literally just opened probably
yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Oh, I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, Prince Street Pizza. And then my favorite breakfast burrito place that was in downtown LA, now they opened on Colorado as well, right across Earth Cafe, called Wake and Lake. And I just told my girlfriend, we can't move out of Pasadena now. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Old Town, we're about a mile away from Old Town, less than that, half a mile from Old Town.
Yeah.
Old Town is just the way, like, Myrtle, I appreciate Myrtle, I appreciate Old Town, like that strip. That's why I love that my office moved there. And I just walk down and walk across.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing those with us. It reminds me of a previous guest, Jennifer, from the Gamble House, and she was talking about history and how Anaheim had a main street similar to Pasadena, old buildings like back to back. And in, I think, the 70s or something, they just demolished the whole thing and it replaced it with office buildings.
Yeah.
And she really saw that it took the owners and the community here to preserve what you have in Old Pasadena. And Old Pasadena, like Myrtle or Myrtle Street, is very special. Like, those buildings are really something else.
Right. Honorable mention would be South Pass on Mission.
Yeah.
That little area, there's a new pizza shop there. I forgot the name. We just went there to have lunch a couple of weeks ago, but they have little coffee shops there. There's all these little small streets, like little downtowns to even Claremont, right? Claremont has that one area.
Right. What's it called?
With
Claremont Village.
Claremont Village.
Yeah.
Is that where they had like a Eureka Burgers, I think?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's a magician there who does magic at a bookstore inside there. He hosts, and I went several times just because he does it in a small bookstore at Claremont Village.
Nice.
It was great.
Nice. I'm curious. So, are you a fan of the more modern Lunasia style of dim sum, or do you like the carts and the noise?
I love the carts. I only go to Lunasia because it's 2 blocks from my place now.
Oh, okay. You're next to what was that? Is it Tokyo Chick? There's like a
Yes, I'm not too far from there. My first office is a block away from there.
Okay.
So I'm closer to I'm on let's see, what's that? Yeah, I'm right. There's a new restaurant called Starleaf opening up. I'm across the street from that. It's a new Asian cuisine restaurant that's opening up.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not too far from
You're like
that.
on Los Robles there, or
A block away. I'm on El Molino and Walnut.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Lawrence, thank you so much for sharing
course.
with us in our audience.
Yeah.
If people need your services or want to get a hold of you and get some information, what's the best way to do that?
Allay, Allay, cremation.com. You can find us on there. We're very I'm mostly responsive on there. I always tell my staff to answer within less than 3 minutes. If not, then, I start to get anxious. So I was like, we got to respond to these families fast because that's what they need right now. So best would be through the website or even on Yelp. Find us on Yelp as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Lawrence, for being a guest on our show. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Well, there you go. Another episode. I found that really interesting. It's a subject that, may not be comfortable to talk about all the time, but we all have questions about it, right? And we all are going to face it for ourselves and the people around us at some point. So why not have information and why not be prepared?
Get prepared. I mean, get your will, get your trust, get all your documents done. Talk to your kids, talk to your parents, talk to your family. Really, it goes a lot easier.
Yeah. And if you're in this area and you'd like, talk to Lawrence at LA. So there you go. Thank you for spending this time with us. We do appreciate it. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want to check out the full catalog of episodes, check out mysgv.net. And until next week, we'll see you then.
Thank you for joining us on the My SGV podcast. Check out more of our content on our website, mysgv.net. This show was produced by Russell Mono and edited by Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. If you'd like to join us next week as we capture and share more stories from our diverse community, feel welcome.
Nice mother. No, kind mother.